never stop reading Bible. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into 5 really powerful chapters from the book of Isaiah. We're looking at chapters 25 through 29. So kicking things off with chapter 25, it just bursts forth, doesn't it? Like a song of praise, we get this really vibrant picture, God's chosen people being saved, entering the Messiah's kingdom. But what's the deeper insight here for us, you think?
Well, I think the profound insight is that God's glory isn't just shown despite judgment. It's actually shown through it. Chapter 25, it beautifully describes God removing death, judging these proud nations, and preparing this great feast, on the mountain of the Lord of hosts. It really reveals how humbling the arrogant ultimately paves the way for the humble remnant to experience true joy and God's ultimate justice.
That sets a powerful tone right away. And building on that vision, that future triumph, chapter 26 then shifts slightly. It focuses on another hymn, another song. This one is meant to be sung in that Messiah's kingdom, highlighting perfect peace. What's this telling us about God's future plans?
Right. This chapter expands on that future. It unveils God's city, a city of complete peace. It does emphasize the people's patient waiting for God, which is crucial. But what's particularly striking, I find, is how it culminates in these powerful declarations about resurrection and final judgment. It carries on those prophecies about the day of the Lord, showing that real lasting peace, well, it only comes after God's divine order is fully established.
Okay, so from that sort of universal peace, we zoom in a bit in chapter 27. We get this compelling vineyard parable. Now, many of us know Israel is often pictured as God's vineyard. How does this specific parable illustrate God's care, but also bring a message of hope, even amid judgment?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. You see this chapter building towards God's judgment, culminating in the defeat of a sea monster, which is, this symbolic depiction of ultimate chaos. God asserts his absolute sovereignty over it to restore cosmic and moral order.
So it's restorative.
Exactly. God's judgment isn't just punitive, it's a profound act of restorative discipline. It's like pruning the vine. It's fundamentally a call for Israel to return to God. His discipline allows them to actually bear fruit. It's not meant to destroy them. And ultimately, it leads to regathering them, partly by judging the other nations that oppress them. It's a tough process, yes, but ultimately a loving one.
So we've seen God's careful tending, his pruning, this tough discipline. But what happens when that discipline is ignored? That seems to bring us to chapter 28, where the tone definitely shifts a bit. It focuses on God's judgment on the wicked, but crucially also promises blessing for the faithful remnant. What's the key takeaway about God's justice here? Is it just about consequences?
I think this chapter highlights a really counterintuitive truth, actually. God's judgment isn't primarily for revenge. It's aimed at repentance and ultimately redemption. So while Israel, who was once called God's crown, faces severe consequences, and both Ephraim, the northern kingdom, and Judah, the southern kingdom, show this stubborn pride, the surprising thing is that God's judgment here, it actually includes a path for Judah's salvation. Even right in the middle of consequences, his grace is actively working, providing a way for the faithful to be preserved. It's quite something.
Grace amidst judgment. Okay. And finally, chapter 29. This brings it all home, right to Jerusalem, often called Ariel here. What's the significance of that name, Ariel, and how does it tie into the city's impending judgment and its spiritual insensitivity?
Ariel is fascinating. It's a name that prophetically hints at both Jerusalem's potential strength like a lion of God and its destiny as a sacrificial altar hearth. It holds both promise and warning. And what's really striking in this chapter is the stark contrast. On one hand, Jerusalem faces judgment for its formal, shallow worship, going through the motions without any real heart in it. But then the prophecy also looks forward beyond the judgment to a future where the people's hearts are completely transformed, and God's protection will be fully on them then. It's not just fixing behavior, it's about a complete spiritual renewal from the inside out.
Wow. Okay, so from grand feasts and perfect peace to these intense judgments, but always holding out the promise of ultimate, profound restoration. This deep dive into Isaiah's prophecies was brought to you by the Center Studio.